Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to using Ableton Live in worship. We're excited to get launched into this class. We're gonna get started in about 5 minutes. But until then, if you click share on this video, you'll be entered to win a copy of Ableton Live Intro. We're gonna be choosing one person and we're gonna give away a free copy of Ableton Live Intro. So hit the share button on the video. Also in the comment box, just type in where you're watching from. It's always fun to kind of see where everybody's tuning in from since we're a community. And we will be back in about 4.5 minutes. See you soon. Hey everybody, and welcome to a beginner's guide to using Ableton Live in worship. My name is Matt McCoy. I'm the founder of Loop Community. I'm an Ableton Live certified trainer, and I'm excited today to teach you how to use Ableton Live in worship. Before we get started, I just wanted to say that if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, just type in the comment box where you're watching from. We're a community, and we love to know where everybody's watching from so that we're into this together. Harold, what's up from the UK? John Wesley from Georgia, welcome. Welcome. Clark from Paris, Mark from California, Tim from sunny Sarasota, nice. Milford from Whitney, Texas, Paul, Matt from Goodyear, Arizona, Steve, what's up Daniel from Bel Air, Adam from Tallahassee. You guys, we're so glad that you're here today. If you're watching this video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna give everybody an opportunity today to purchase Ableton Live intro for $49. That's half the price. Usually it's $100. We're going to give everybody who attends this webinar the opportunity to purchase it for $49. But we're also going to give away one copy of Ableton Live intro to one person. And to enter to win, just hit the share button on the video, whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on YouTube. Hit the share button now so we can get the word out. And we're going to choose one person who shares the video and give you an Ableton Live 10 copy. So, while we're getting ready to get going, we're going to show you a video that explains a little bit more about Loop Community, and then we'll be right back and jump right into training. Chicago is a city that's always reinventing. Everywhere you look, buildings are being torn down and new buildings are going up. New restaurants are opening on every corner, and somehow, even though they use the same age-old ingredients, they're able to create new meals packed with brand new flavors. People are inventing new ways to get around the city, new ways to pay for things. It's always being refined and streamlined. Chicago is always working. And that's one of the things I love about the LC headquarters being in the heart of Chicago. This city inspires and influences our decisions every day. We're always looking for new ways to share the same message, new ways to perform the same tasks, but in a more efficient way. And as a worship leader, I know what it's like to want to spend the best hours of my days creating and refining my craft, not messing around with confusing hardware and software. And that's why at LC, we're passionate about reinventing ourselves and developing brand new products that serve worship leaders all around the world. I wake up every morning excited to do this work. We started as a company that focused on giving worship leaders a way to legally share the tracks that they were creating with each other. We converted a black market of user-generated track sharing into a platform that then ensures that songwriters and artists are actually getting paid. A few years later, we knew that there had to be an easier way to play back your multi-tracks. And so with our app, Prime, we wanted to make it easy to customize your songs so that you can still lead with tracks, but sound like you. With Looptimus, we got tired of using MIDI controllers that were really hard to configure. Sometimes it felt like only a rocket scientist could figure out how to make them do simple tasks like triggering your tracks or looping a chorus. More recently, the team at LC has been working to simplify a different problem. We've been dreaming about what would it look like to reimagine the audio interface. Up to this point, musicians have had to purchase more gear than they actually need just to get their tracks heard through the sound system. As a solution to this issue, LC has worked hard to develop TrackRig. We've made a complicated process simple and streamlined. The team at LC is dedicated to creating quality and affordable resources for worship leaders. We pay extremely close attention to the needs of the local church, and we work tirelessly to develop tools to meet the needs of modern musicians. Our passion is to provide tracks, hardware, and software that will make your Sunday a little bit easier. We were all made for community, and that's why LC will always be by the church and for the church. Hey everybody, everybody's tuning in from Facebook and YouTube. Welcome to beginners of Ableton Live, all right? We're gonna dive in. As you can see in that video, Loop Community is passionate about teaching worship leaders how to use tracks, but not just teaching worship leaders how to use tracks, but how to make it simple, because it can be really complicated. And I know when I first started using tracks, I've been using tracks since 2001, and I first started using them, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I remember feeling really overwhelmed. I remember thinking, I really want to focus on leading worship. I don't want to be focusing on a computer and a foot controller and all sorts of different technology. I want to just lead worship. And I remember feeling very overwhelmed by the idea of how am I going to actually implement this while I lead worship? Because leading worship is hard enough sometimes. But I remember I had someone who came alongside me and helped me learn how to use Ableton Live. And I remember being a little bit afraid at first, but once he sat down and showed me for about an hour how it works and what it looks like, so I could kind of even understand what I'm looking at on the screen, I remember feeling way more at ease about it. And it took me maybe 1 or 2 times to actually use it, maybe in a rehearsal or in my office just prepping, before I felt really comfortable. But then, ever since then, I've used it every single weekend whenever I lead worship. And I would never turn back, because this technology can enhance the sound of your worship band. Whether you're at a small church or at a really large church, this is for you. I grew up in church plants where we didn't have musicians. We were missing a bass player all the time. And if we would have had this back then, that would have been so awesome, because you can actually use a bass track to replace that missing bass musician. Or let's just say you have a full, huge band, but you don't have someone who can just play percussion or a synth line or a violin. Well, now you could at least use those tracks to help fill out the sound of your band and make it just sound massive and huge. And so I'm really passionate about teaching worship leaders how to do this, because I know that when I first started, I was scared, but once I learned, I never turned back. So my name is Matt McCoy. I'm the founder of loopcommunity.com. I'm an Ableton Live certified trainer. I love this software. I love teaching worship leaders how to use it. And I've been leading worship since I was 13 years old, and just love leading worship and love all things worship. So we're going to dive in, because I hear that some of you are wanting to learn how to use tracks. So we're going to jump in. We're going to jump into Ableton Live. Let's talk about what Ableton Live is. Now, here's the thing. It's important to know this, because just like anybody who's writing a paper for school, or let's just say you're writing an essay, anybody who's writing something knows what Microsoft Word is. Microsoft Word is like the staple software out there for writing stuff, right? Well, Ableton Live is the staple software out there for running tracks. So if you're going to get into this world of tracks, you're going to hear Ableton Live everywhere. If you start Googling it, you're going to see Ableton Live all over the place. Let's talk about what Ableton Live is and how it works. First of all, Ableton Live comes in 3 different versions. There's Intro, Suite, and Standard. So Intro starts at $99 usually, which is a pretty low entry price point, I think, for music software, but it can go all the way up to $800 for the Suite version. Everything we're going to do today, all you need is the Intro version. That means everything I'm going to show you today, you can do with the $99 version. But again, today, anybody who's joining this class is going to get an opportunity to get that for $49 instead. So stay tuned for that. The Suite version, the really expensive one, is maybe if you're going to be like producing your own music and getting really serious about recording audio, but you're not going to have to worry about that for running tracks. So just look at Ableton Live 10 Intro, and it runs exactly the same on Mac and PC. So whatever side you're on, this software is going to work for you. So once you have Ableton Live 10 Intro, let's go and pull that up, and I'm going to show you what it looks like once you load it. So this is what Ableton Live looks like. When you first pull it up, it can look kind of scary, kind of daunting, but let me walk you through it piece by piece, and you'll totally feel comfortable after this class. Ableton Live has 2 views. The first view that we're looking at is called Session View. Session View looks kind of like Microsoft Excel. There's little cells, little clip boxes they call them, and there's audio tracks, the vertical audio tracks, and then there's these horizontal lines that go across, and these are called scenes. We're going to talk about that more in just a second. The other view that Ableton Live 10 has is Arrangement View. Let's just hit the Tab key to get there. And this is arrangement view. This looks like more like your standard music software, where you have tracks, but they go down a timeline from left to right. This looks like GarageBand, Pro Tools, Logic. If you're used to any of those softwares, this is kind of like that. What we're going to start with, because I think this is the easiest way to get going with using Ableton Live, is we're going to start with Session View, the Microsoft Excel looking kind of thing. So let's go ahead and break this down. We're going to actually just build a set list together from scratch as if we're leading worship tonight. In fact, let's put the pressure on. Let's just say we're going to lead worship in 2 hours from now, which means we're going to have this set done. It's going to be ready to go for our worship set. So I'm going to delete these 2 tracks because you don't need those. When you first pull it up, let's just start with 1 track. And just to delete those tracks, I'm clicking on the title and hitting the delete key. Let's go ahead and start building a set list. So over here on the right-hand side, these scenes, which are the horizontal lines that go across, this is your worship set. So right now I have 8 songs in my set. Let's just hit the delete key to remove some of those. We're going to do 4 songs in our worship set. Now let's bring in some tracks. On the left-hand side of the screen, this whole box right here, this is called Live's File Browser. And it's a way to access different files that are stored inside of Ableton Live or on your computer. The top section here, this is called, these are like where you can find all your different sounds. Now, we're not going to dive into this part too deep because this is more for if you're going to use Ableton Live to record music. So this is where you could find different drum sounds. There's different audio effects like reverbs and delays, MIDI effects, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about any of that for right now. If you're interested in learning about how to record with this software, you should check out some other videos on our YouTube channel. What we're going to be looking at is down here at the bottom. It's called Places. And these are shortcuts to different folders on your computer. So if I wanted a shortcut to my iTunes library or a shortcut to a music folder on my desktop, I could create that. So I've already created some shortcuts, and I have a folder on my computer called My Worship Songs. And it's where I store all of my tracks. And you can see I have 3 folders here: Community, Masters, and Premium. So this is where the question comes in of where do you get tracks? So unless you make your own, you need to download and purchase them from somewhere. And that's where loopcommunity.com comes in. Let me just give you a little quick overview about what Loop Community is. Loop Community is a place where we have thousands and thousands of tracks for worship songs. So if you make your own tracks, you can also upload them to the site and sell them and make money. But if you don't know how to do that, you can just go to the website, search for a song, and then download tracks for that you can use in Ableton Live. So let me just talk you through the different track options we have at Loop Community. We sell community tracks, and these are tracks made by worship leaders from all over the world. So like I was saying before, if you make a track for How Great Is Our God, you can upload it. Every time it sells, you make some money. This is a great way to support local worship leaders all over the world. We sell master tracks. These are the original tracks from the record label. So if you're wanting the original tracks from Phil Wickham's album, you can download those. And we sell premium tracks. So this is a great option for whenever we don't have a master track, we always record a high quality premium track that sounds just like the original, gives you all the instruments you need, and they're half the price. So premium tracks are a great option for you. So we need some tracks for our worship set in Ableton Live. So let's go ahead and just search for some songs. You can click on the feed if you want to see what are the top selling songs on the site. You can see the latest community tracks, latest premiums, latest master tracks, all sorts of things, the top tracks. But let's just say you're looking for something specific. So today we want to do Glorious Day. So I'm going to search Glorious Day. And it's going to search the site. Now, there's a bunch of different versions of Glorious Day. There's Glorious Day by Crossroads or Midway or Casting Crowns. We want the Passion version. So we're going to go to the Passion version. And now I can choose what tracks I want. So I can buy the premium track by Loop Community, or I could select one of the community tracks by different worship leaders. So let's just say we want the premium track today. On the page, you can actually preview the song and listen to the different instruments to see kind of how each track sounds. Once you've decided you want to purchase that song, you can just click up here in the top right corner and choose in-app and file download. Since we're using Ableton Live, you're going to need the audio files downloaded to your computer. So that's why you're going to want to choose this product. Once you add it to your cart and check out, you can purchase the track. You will get a zip file that you can download to your computer, and inside that zip file will be all the audio files. So let me show you what that looks like once we get back to Ableton Live. So you purchase the track, go to Ableton Live, and wherever those files downloaded, I have Glorious Day right here. Here's what's important. We name all of our tracks with the tempo and the key in the folder name. This is important because you need to know what key the song is in and what tempo these tracks are at, especially when we start changing the key and tempo, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So Glorious Day is at 110 and in the key of D. And now I can just click on these different tracks and it'll play them to preview them. And these are all the different tracks that are available to me for Glorious Day. So let's go and start bringing them in to Ableton Live. First thing we're going to do, we're going to right click on scene 1, which is our first song in our set list. And we're going to choose rename. And I'm going to call this Glorious Day. It's our first song. And now let's start bringing in the individual tracks that we need. So I'm going to rename the first track. We're going to call this Cues. Now some of you might be wondering, what are cues? I'm going to drag these over and just drop it.
Intro, 2, 3, 4.
Cues are that little voice you just heard there. Intro, 2, 3, 4. One of the beautiful things about using tracks is that you have a little voice that guides your entire band, all of your volunteers, through the song. This is my favorite thing about using tracks, because how many times have you been in a rehearsal where like you have to start for the 20th time because someone didn't listen and know where you're going next? Well, now you have someone that whispers in everybody's ear, intro, 2, 3, 4, and they know exactly where they're going. I love that about tracks. So cues are all going to go in our first track here.
3, 4.
Now let's go ahead and start bringing in all the instruments we need. For this demo, I'm just going to bring in everything. Realistically, if you had a full band, you wouldn't bring in every instrument. But let's just for right now, just for kicks, let's just bring in everything. So I'm going to bring it all in. You'll notice that when I am dragging these files in, it's trying to drop them in vertically. We don't want that. We want them to drop in horizontally. So I'm going to hold the Command key, and it now drops them horizontally, and it added tracks for every single one of those instruments. So let me go and show you what these play buttons are. You'll notice that every single clip has a play button on it.
3, 4.
You don't want to do what I'm doing right now, where I'm clicking play on every single one of these audio files.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
The reason you don't want to do that is because now all the tracks are not going to be playing in time with each other, because they are not starting at the same time. So instead of doing that, you want to press the play button or the launch button that's on that song itself. So right here,
intro, 2, 3,
when I press this play button, or this launch button they call it, it's going to launch or play all those clips at the exact same time.
Verse 2,
so now
3,
all the
4.
audio files are in sync with each other. Okay, let's go ahead and bring in another song. Our next song is going to be Cornerstone. So I'm going to go ahead and type in Cornerstone. And let's go and bring in our tracks. I have a folder here of all the tracks that I've gotten for Cornerstone. Let's bring in the cue file first. And then you would bring in whatever instruments that you really need. So if I had a drummer, I wouldn't be using a drum track. You get the idea. Let's go ahead and bring in everything just for this exercise. I'm going to hold Shift and then hold Command to deselect the ones I don't want. That's a little pro tip there. And now let's just drag and drop. Hold Command to drop them in horizontally. And that's it. Now I have all my tracks for Cornerstone. Let's go ahead and do our third song, which is going to be Raise a Hallelujah. And let's bring in our audio files. So I'm going to bring in the cues here. Now if you wanted to get really organized, you would drop the same instruments down every single track. You don't have to do that though. It really depends if you want to be really organized with how you're routing your audio, which we will talk about later. Okay, so I've got 3 songs in here. If you're anything like me, a little bit OCD, then you like to color coordinate things. So I'm going to go ahead and just highlight all these by holding Shift and right click and choose a color. You can also change the color of the song itself. And now that I've started it, I have to finish it because that's just how I operate. All right, let's go ahead and do the next song. You'll kind of see that I feel like coloring it really helps you visualize what song you're on. Let's make all the track titles white. Great. So now we can see really clearly what song is what. Now let's go ahead and press play on Raise a Hallelujah. It's going to start playing
Intro,
all those audio
2,
files.
3, 4.
All right. If you want to skip ahead, you can always just click and drag on
3.
this time bar right here to skip ahead.
Verse 2, 3,
All right.
4.
Now let's go ahead and bring in one more song. We're going to bring in This Is Amazing Grace, and it's going to be our 4th song. And I have a master track for this. So I'm going to bring in all my instruments. Okay. Let's rename this. This is Amazing Grace. And let's go ahead and color coordinate it. I'm going to make those blue. Okay. Now, let's talk about how in the world do we get a click to these tracks. So in the top left corner of the screen, this is your metronome control center, basically. This is where everything with the click and the tempo lives, right here. So I can tap a tempo in if I want to set a tempo. I can type a tempo in by just typing it in, pressing enter. I can click and drag. This button right here turns the metronome on and off. And right here is your time signature. So right now we're at 4/4, playing at 148 BPM. So let's go ahead and play This Is Amazing Grace.
Intro 2,
with the click
3,
turned on.
4.
And you'll see that the click is not at all in time with these tracks. So why is that? The reason is because the click is playing at 148, but This Is Amazing Grace is actually at 98 BPM. So we need to tell Ableton Live, when we play This Is Amazing Grace, change the tempo to 98. And it's really easy to do. You just right click on This Is Amazing Grace on the scene and choose Edit Launch Tempo. Launch, again, is like the same word as play. So we're saying when we play this song, change it to, and I'm going to type in 98. So now when I press play on this song, watch what happens to the tempo box. It's going to change from 148 to 98.
Intro 2, 3.
And now the click is in time with the tracks. Now what's really important to know is that you need to set every one of your songs, you need to set all those up with the correct tempo. Otherwise Ableton Live is going to stay on what you last told it to do. So right now it would play every song at 98 BPM. So let's go ahead and do that for Glorious Day. Glorious Day, let's go back and look at what Glorious Day is at. It is at 110, so I'm just going to right click, Edit Launch Tempo, type in 110 and enter. Cornerstone, right click, Edit Launch Tempo is at 72 BPM. And Raise a Hallelujah, I'm going to show you a shortcut here. You can, when you're typing these in, you could just type in the tempo. So I'm going to do Raise a Hallelujah, semicolon, and you don't have to do semicolon, but I like doing that as a separator. Raise a Hallelujah is at 82. I'm just going to type in 82 BPM. You can also do time signature changes. So I think that anytime a drummer is playing with a track, if it's under 100 BPM, it can kind of be hard to stay on a click that's like that. So you might want to add in the 8th note. So it's like that. It's a little bit easier for a drummer to lock in. So what we're going to do for this song is just set the time signature to 2/8. And notice what happens when I press play on Raise a Hallelujah. The tempo changed to 82.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
And the time signature changed to 2/8, added those 8th notes in on our click. So we're ready to go. Now let's just say, so we have a whole set really set up here. If we wanted to play them just as they are, we could do that. We'd be actually ready to go here. We would just need to do some audio routing. But let's just say that you get into rehearsal and you're like, you know what? Or let's just say you show up to church and you're like, wow, I have a cold. I can't sing as high as this song as we planned. We need to drop it down. Or we're going to have someone else sing it. But they need it in a different key. Well, I'm going to show you how in Ableton Live you can change the key of a track, you can also change the tempo of a track, which is pretty cool. We're going to use a feature called warping. And this can kind of scare some people. And people are like, what in the world is warping? Is it some sort of like Star Wars, like Star Trek, like time travel thing? Kind of. Warping is really powerful in Ableton Live. Ableton Live was actually built for DJs. So if you have ever heard two different songs, like maybe a Taylor Swift song and a Justin Bieber song, that were at two totally different tempos, different keys, but somehow they like remixed them together so that it sounds like one song, they used warping. And Ableton Live is really powerful at doing that. And as worship leaders, we've been able to figure out how to use it to change the key and tempos of our songs. So let me show you how to do that. What I'm about to say is very important. You should pull out a sticky note right now and write this down, because this is probably one of the #1 support requests we get about Ableton Live. When you first install Ableton Live, you need to change one thing inside of Preferences. And let me show you where it is. If you go to Live and go to Preferences, you should do this right away. Go to the tab that's called Record Warp Launch, and where it says Auto Warp Long Samples, make sure you turn that off. We do not want Ableton Live auto warping things when we drag audio files in. I'll show you why right now. So just make sure that's off. So none of these tracks that we have been warped yet, because I had that turned off. Here's the first step to warping. Let's just say we're on This Is Amazing Grace, and we want to change the key of this. Before you change the key or the tempo, you have to warp. If you don't warp, all your tracks are going to get out of time and out of sync, so don't mess around with the tempo before you've warped. Here's what you do to warp. First thing you do is in the top left corner of the screen, you set the tempo to the original tempo of the song. So This Is Amazing Grace is at 98. Let's go and type in 98 and press enter. And now I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to select all of the clips or the audio tracks for This Is Amazing Grace. And down here, there's a little button that says Warp. I'm going to press Warp. And what it just did is it just went through and analyzed all of the audio files and warped them. Let me just zoom in and I'll show you what it exactly did. So this is the drum track. Anywhere where it found a downbeat, it added a warp marker. You can see those little arrows. Now that the software knows where all of the downbeats are in the audio, it has a point of reference to know how to speed it up and how to change the tempo, change the key without things getting out of whack. So warping is pretty simple. That's all you do. You have to just make sure to set the tempo, select all your tracks, because you have to warp everything, not just one or two, and then press warp. Now that it's warped, let me show you what you can do. I'm going to go ahead and press play on it.
2, 3, 4.
Now that it's warped, let's just say you're like, you know what, we want to speed it up. I can just click and drag. We could do this now at whatever tempo we want. We could slow it down. Let's just say we want to do it at 80. And all my tracks are in sync with each other at 80 BPM, which is pretty cool. Let's just say you're like, you know what? Let's put this back at 98. Let's just say we need to change the key. Because hey, I got sick, we need to lower it down. Just select all of your tracks by holding Shift, select. And down here at the bottom left corner, there's a little knob that says transpose. And this goes in half-step increments. So I'm going to go down a half step. And you can hear it transposed all of the tracks down. Let's go up. Now, one little tip is that you don't have to transpose things that don't need to be transposed. And what I mean by that is a drum track doesn't need transposed, so I wouldn't do that. You definitely still need to warp everything though. So warp it all and then just transpose the guitars or the keys or the piano, because those are all instruments that are playing notes that need to be transposed. So that is warping. It's really easy to do. The trick is just to remember to set the tempo first. All right? To prove how quick and fast you can do it, just click play on Raise a Hallelujah. It sets the tempo for me. Hold Shift, click Warp, and you're done. Raise a Hallelujah now is warped and ready to be, you can change the key or the tempo. Okay, now let's talk about grouping tracks. Sometimes you want to take a selection of groups, let's just say all of your electric guitars, and you want to group them into one group called electrics. This can just be to help you manage all the files that you're looking at in Ableton Live. So what I'm going to do is just highlight, let's just select those electric tracks right here, and right-click and choose Group Tracks. And it's going to take those tracks and put them inside of a group that I could name Electric. And now all my electric tracks are inside of there, and I can close the group if I want, or expand it and add more later if you want. You can right-click to ungroup tracks when you don't need that anymore. So let's talk about how do you get the audio out of your computer into your sound system. This is an important thing, and there's a couple of different methods you can use. Let's just start talking through the basic method. If you are just getting started using this, which I think you are since you're at this class, then I would recommend doing this. I'm going to show you a diagram here on a basic way to set this up. So where you see that iPad there, just pretend that that is your computer running Ableton Live. And you're going to come out of your computer's headphone jack with a cable that starts with a headphone jack on one end and splits to 2 1/4-inch cables. This is a cable you can purchase from our shop or from Amazon. It's pretty cheap. It's like less than $10. And this is kind of audio 101, but sometimes people think, well, an audio or a headphone jack is only one output because it's one jack. But actually, your headphone jack is 2 outputs because it's a stereo output. You've got the left-hand side and you have the right-hand side. Kind of like when you wear a pair of headphones. You have the left-hand side and you have the right-hand side. We're going to use those 2 sides to our advantage here in running tracks. So as you can see this diagram, I'm going to use that cable. It takes a headphone jack and splits it into the left side and the right side. And in that diagram, you'll see that the white cable is the left-hand side, and that's where we're going to send all of our click and our cues. And you're going to plug that into a direct box. This is just like a normal direct box that you would plug in your guitar or a piano to. You just need to get 2 more direct boxes. They're probably laying around in a church closet somewhere. So you're going to have the click and cues going into one direct box, send that to your sound system, and then however you get audio to the band, whether it's in your monitors or floor monitor, you want to get the click to the band. On the right-hand side, which is the red side of that cable, we're going to pan all the tracks to the right-hand side of the headphone jack. And then that goes into a direct box, that goes to the sound system, and you tell your sound team to turn it up because you got to start thinking of Ableton Live and your tracks as another member of your band. If you want to start scheduling them on Planning Center, do that. You want to make sure that your sound team turns it up because everybody needs to hear these tracks as your band's playing. Let me show you in Ableton Live how to actually do that audio routing. So let's just say we plugged in one of those headphone cables into our headphone jack. In the right-hand side of the screen, there's a tiny button. It's like microscopic, but it's down there, and it says I/O, which stands for in and out. Let's go and click on that, and it's going to open up the in and out settings for every single track. This looks really scary, but let me break it down for you. It's really simple. The white boxes on the top, don't even worry about those. Those are for inputs. So if we were recording into Ableton Live, then we would need these, but don't even look at them right now. What we're looking at is the white box on the bottom where it says audio 2, and it's saying where is the audio going. So right now it says the audio is going to the master. Okay, where's the master? Well, on the right-hand side of the screen, this is your master track. And we can see down here that the master is going out outputs 1 and 2. And this is just something you'll have to remember, but 1 is left and 2 is right. That's just how Ableton Live calls it. So 1 is the left-hand side of your headphone jack, and 2 is the right-hand side of your headphone jack. So right now, the way it's set up, all of my tracks are going to the master, which are going out output 1 and 2. Let's go ahead and change that, and let's just start with the click. The click up here, this goes out what's called Q out, which is on the right-hand side of the screen. And we're going to change that to go output 1, because we want the click to go out of the left-hand side of our headphone jack. This little blue knob is the volume of the click, so you can always adjust the volume of the click here. My tracks, well actually, so we did the click, now we need to do the cues. So over here on the cues, which is our first track, let's just change this from master to external out, which is the headphone jack, and we're going to choose output 1. Okay, so we've got our clicking cues going out of the left-hand side. Now let's get the tracks to the right-hand side. Everything else is going out the master, which is great. So I'm going to just change the master to go out 2. So when I play this audio, we should hear it panned. The clicking cues are on the left-hand side, and all the tracks are on the right-hand side. If you want to route some of these tracks individually, you can always do that by just going to external out and choose what output you want it to go out. That is the basic way of routing audio. In a minute, I'm going to show you a little bit more of an advanced way, but before we get there, I want to show you how to actually control your tracks. So let's just say you're a worship leader and you're like, well, who is supposed to actually run these tracks? Like, where do we do it? Well, if you look up on a stage at church, sometimes you might see a computer backed by the drummer. Sometimes you might see it backed by the keyboard player. Sometimes you might see it at the foot of the worship leader. When I lead worship, I like to have the tracks down by me so I can kind of control them and run them, because I know maybe when I want to stop and say something, maybe pray, or maybe I want to go to a totally different song. I kind of like to have the control on that, but there's no wrong or right way to do this, all right? So it's all just up to your preference. Let's just talk about, let's just say you want your drummer to do it, which I think is a really popular option. If we were to set this up by our drummer right now, what I would do is just set up key commands on the keyboard so that he doesn't have to, like, when he's done playing a song, go to the mouse, try to find the mouse, and then go to press play. Because we all know that in a worship set, these transitions are super important. We want smooth, tight transitions so it doesn't disrupt the worship service. So we're going to set up key commands so the drummer can just press 1 or 2 or 3 to start those songs. It's really simple to do. In the top right corner of the screen, there's a button that says key. I'm going to press that, and anything you see that turns orange on the screen can be assigned or mapped to a key on your keyboard. So I'm going to click on Glorious Day, and then I'm going to assign that to 1. So if I press 1 on the keypad, it's going to launch Glorious Day. Let's do the same thing for Cornerstone. Will be 2. Raise a Hallelujah is 3. This is Amazing Grace is 4. Now let's close out the key commands, and you could just say, hey drummer, let's just start song 3. He can press song 3, and it starts playing
Intro.
Raise a Hallelujah.
3, 4.
Spacebar will stop and start the track, so he can always kill the track by just pressing stop. Also, you can reorder your set list by just dragging these around like that, and all your tracks move with it. Your key commands stay assigned to the actual song that you assigned it to. So you can still move around your set, and the key commands all stay. So that's a great option. Now let's just say you're a worship leader like me, who I play acoustic guitar when I lead. And I don't have my hands free. So I'm not going to be leading worship and then in between songs going to my computer and people are like, what's he doing? Checking his email or something, when I'm trying to find, like, to press play on the tracks. I want this to be seamless. I don't want people to know really that it's there because, again, it's distracting. So what we developed at Loop Community is a foot controller that is designed specifically for worship leaders. And this is designed specifically to be used with Ableton Live or any other music application, really. But let me show you how it works with Ableton Live. So this foot controller is called the Looptimus, and it's set up where it has next and previous buttons. And you can cycle through, these are called banks. Now, you could think of these as songs in your set list. So you could have, I think this goes up to 20. You could have 20 songs in your set list. And then each song, there's 6 buttons that can be assigned within that song. So what you could do is you could be on song 3 and then have intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, outro, ending, and then there's a global stop button, meaning this is an emergency stop. If you need to kill the tracks, you can press that and it's going to kill or stop all the tracks. Another way you could do this, because again, this all comes down to preference, there's no wrong or right way to do it, would be to just use one page and assign song 1, song 2, song 3, 4, 5, 6. And then if you need more pages, go to the next page, 7, 8, 9. And you could just keep going. That's another way to do it. The way that I personally like to do it is I use one bank per song. So this will be song 1. When I want to stop, I'll press stop. And then I'll go to song 2 and then start song 2. And then go to the next song and start song 3. You get the idea. So let me show you how to map this in Ableton Live. It's really simple. You just plug it in via USB right into your computer. And let's go to Ableton Live, and in the top right corner there's a button that says MIDI. And now, very similar to the key commands, anything that you see that turned blue can be mapped to any button on Looptimus. So our first song is This Is Amazing Grace. I'm going to make that button 1A. Glorious Day is going to be 2A. Cornerstone will be 3A. And Raise a Hallelujah will be 4A. And then my stop button is going to be mapped to the main stop button. We'll close this out, and I can press 1A to start my first song.
3, 4.
If I need to stop that track, I can press stop. When I'm ready to go to song 2,
Intro,
press
2,
2A.
3, 4.
It starts Glorious Day. I don't have to press stop. When it gets to the end of Glorious Day, I can just
Verse 2,
have
3, 4.
number 3 already queued up. When that song's over, just launch song 3.
Intro 2.
So
3,
you don't have to actually
4.
stop the track if you don't want to. But it's always an option just in case. It's really helpful in rehearsal where you just need to be like, hey guys, let's talk through that. You can press the stop button. There's a lot of other really cool things you can do with this controller. You can actually also use it to play pads with your feet. So there's actually a piano mode on Looptimus. If you just press and hold the stop button and go to pad mode. Now I can actually cycle through different keys. So if let's just say you're in the key of C, and button 1 plays the 1 chord of the key of C, button 4 plays the 4 chord of the key of C, button 5 plays the 5 chord of the key of C. And that's actually a really fun feature to use in Ableton Live. It's really simple to use. You just go to Create, Insert MIDI Track, and then on that MIDI track you can find a sound that you'd like. So let's just find a pad. And we'll just drag this one in. That's kind of a weird sounding pad, but we'll just use this one for now. But you'll get the idea. You can add any sound you want on there. In Live Preferences, just go to where Looptimus is and turn track on. And now I can just press 1, and it plays the 1 chord of the key of C, or the 4 to go to the 4 chord, or the 5 chord. So now we're kind of getting into actually really playing inside of Ableton Live. You can use this to maybe set up a prayer. Maybe you go into the key of the next song and maybe say a prayer. It's like, hey, let's sing that down chorus of that song. And you can launch a pad, and that's it. When you press stop, it's going to fade out the pad. So that is how to control Ableton Live. You can either use the key mappings on the computer keyboard, or you could use a controller like Looptimus. If you're interested in Looptimus, just go to loopcommunity.com and go to Products and click on Looptimus. And it will take you to this page where you can purchase that. We also have a smaller version if you're interested in just a simple 3-button controller. We have that as well, but it's all at loopcommunity.com. Now, let's go back to talking about audio routing, because I know that some of you might be having this question. What we were doing before was very simple and basic with headphone jack out. The downside of using the headphone jack out is that all of your tracks, meaning every instrument, guitars, keyboards, percussion, they're all getting mixed together and being sent out the same output. Now, that's not the end of the world if you do some mixing ahead of time to make sure that the balances are right. The downside is, let's just say your sound team is like, hey, that tambourine is really loud, and they have no control over the tambourine because it's all mixed together. So they just have all the tracks on a volume fader up or down. So what's ideal, if you can do it, is to send every single instrument out of its own output to the soundboard so that your sound team can control the volume of your guitars, your percussion track, your synth track, and it gives your sound team way more control and ultimately helps your tracks sound better. So what I'm going to show you today is a really cool product that we released called TrackRig, and we invented this specifically for worship leaders who are using tracks and need what I just talked about. Before I show you how to set this up, we're going to show you a quick video and we'll be right back. TrackRig is the best audio interface for live performance. Giving you 8 XLR outputs, TrackRig has everything you need to connect your tracks directly to the sound system. With TrackRig, using tracks has never been easier. Whether you're new to backing tracks or have been using them for years, TrackRig simplifies and streamlines the entire playback process by making it easy to route your audio where it needs to go. Connect TrackRig to your computer or mobile device using a USB cable. TrackRig will automatically be recognized as an audio output device in Ableton Live, Prime, Logic, or any other playback application. There's no installation process, no confusing software audio routing, just plug and go. Once TrackRig is connected, route your tracks to any of the 8 line-level XLR outputs. There's no need for direct boxes or adapters. Simply run standard XLR cables from TrackRig's outputs directly into your soundboard or audio snake to begin receiving strong, clean, high-fidelity signal. TrackRig also acts as a USB hub for your computer or mobile device. TrackRig gives you 4 additional USB ports to connect your MIDI controllers, external hard drives, or even give your phone a charge. Why pay for a recording interface when you aren't doing any recording? TrackRig eliminates the need to buy expensive audio interfaces and direct boxes for your tracks to be heard. TrackRig combines everything you need into one simple, rack-mountable box. The future of live playback interfaces is here with TrackRig. Get yours today at trackrig.com. All right, so TrackRig is designed to be super simple. Again, we're trying to make complicated things very easy at Loop Community, because it should be. You really should be able to focus on what you're doing. You should be focusing on leading your people into worship, not focusing on technology, all right? So we want to make this really simple, because also you should be spending time with your family too. You don't want to be spending 10 hours a week building, creating your sessions and getting everything ready. You should be able to do this quickly so that you can be spending time with people that you love. All right, so let me just show you TrackRig. I've got a unit right here. It's very simple. Again, on the back, there's USB jacks and there's a host port that you can use to plug in the computer. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in the computer into the back of TrackRig. All right, and then on the front, we have the XLR cables, which we don't have a mixer today, so I'm not going to be plugging that in. But let's go ahead and power up TrackRig. And you'll see when I plug this on, and the camera's just a little blurry, but that's all right. When I plug this in, you're going to see all the lights light up. All you do is go to Live Preferences, and under Audio, you're going to go to Audio Output Device, and TrackRig should show up right here. So I'm going to choose Loop Community TrackRig. All right, sorry about that, you guys. We had a little bit of a glitch with the streaming device, but we're back. Sorry about that. Okay, so you plug in TrackRig. Audio streaming and video streaming is complicated, but running tracks is not.
2, 3.
All right, so here's what you do. You plug in TrackRig, go to Live Preferences, and make sure the TrackRig is selected as your output. So I just set TrackRig as the audio output. And under I/O, which is your in and out settings, you can choose the outputs for each channel. So let's go to External Out. And now I have different options. Output 4, output 2, output 5, and I can set the outputs of all my individual tracks, which is really simple. So now on TrackRig, I'll show you, you can see all my tracks are coming out of the different outputs that I set them at. So this is really awesome because now the sound guy or the sound girl can adjust the volume of all your different audio tracks. So that's TrackRig. It's really simple, really easy to use. So if you're interested in TrackRig, you can also plug in a Looptimus into the back of TrackRig by just using the USB hub in the very back of the unit. If you're interested in picking up a TrackRig, you can go to loopcommunity.com and go to Products and click on TrackRig. And you can see that here. It works perfectly with Ableton Live, really simple to set up, really easy to use. And we have tons of videos too that will walk you through how to use it. Now, one thing I want to jump into really quickly is how to use Arrangement View. Now, there is no wrong way to use tracks inside of Ableton Live. Some guys are totally in the session view camp, which is what we built our track session in. And some are like, no, we're going to use Arrangement View. And what's awesome is that both views work awesome, like great, depending on what your worship set is. So I like Arrangement View a lot because you can actually time out your entire set, put in crossfades. You could, if you want to just press play and never touch it again and just run through the set, run through your songs from start to finish, Arrangement View is a cool option. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but I am going to just dive in just for a second and show you how you would use Arrangement View. So we're going to just go to New, Set. We're not going to save that one that we just did. Let's go and turn our output back to the headphone jack. And let's go to Arrangement View. I'm going to hit Delete on these tracks. And let's start from scratch, all right? Really simple. I'm just going to bring in a song. So let's go ahead and pick our first song. It's going to be Glorious Day. And very similar to Session View, you just drag the audio files in and drop. I'm going to go ahead and press Shift, hold Shift, and select all the different tracks I want. And drag and drop those audio files into Arrangement View. Let's go ahead and press play to hear what these audio files sound like.
2, 3, 4.
Okay, let's go ahead and turn the click on.
Verse 2, 3.
You'll hear that the
4.
click is not at all in time with the tracks. I'm going to go and just click everything. I'm going to select all these tracks and make them a little smaller so that we have a little bit more screen real estate. Here's what's cool about Arrangement View is you can add different locators in the different sections of your song. So if I wanted to add a locator or a little marker, I can just press the Set button, right click, and call this Intro. Let's go ahead and press play here.
Verse 2,
This is
3.
the verse. So I'm going to click Set to add a marker. And let's call this verse. And I'm not going to do this for the whole song, but you would go down the entire song and add different markers or little flags of where in the song you are. Now, what's important to do before you even do what I just did is you want to make sure you set the tempo on the grid to the correct tempo of the song. There we go. So I just need to move this back. That way the tracks are lining up to the click. So let's press play.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
And I could just keep adding markers wherever I need them. So let's see what this one is.
Verse 2,
This
3,
is the verse.
4.
Right click, rename, call it verse. Now what I would do if I were building a set in Arrangement View is I would go ahead and just bring in my next song and put it down in the timeline over here. And you just keep building your set down a timeline from left to right. One thing about arrangement view is that there isn't an option to set a launch tempo. So there's a way around that, and you can do it by using a tempo track. All you do is you just go to Create, Insert Audio Track, and we're just going to call this audio track, I'm going to right click on it and call it Tempo Track. Pretty simple to do. Now what you do is you just go to the very beginning and you bring in a blank audio file. This could be any audio file you want. It could be one that you just bring in and turn down all the way. Or I just have a blank one that I already made. And it's just a blank audio file. Nothing fancy to it. And what we're going to do is we're going to highlight all of our tracks like this. I'm going to double click on it, highlight all of our tracks, and click on Warp. Then what we're going to do is we're going to click on our tempo track, and I'm going to change this to say leader. What we're saying is that all of these tracks are going to follow whatever the tempo track is doing. So let me show you what we're going to do. We're going to drag now on that tempo track all the way down the timeline to the end of the set, all right? And now let's just say that I wanted to do Glorious Day at 110. On the tempo track, I'm going to change this song to 100. Let's just say it's 130. I'm going to turn leader off and turn it back on.
Intro 2, 3,
and now my
4.
tracks are playing at 130. So you would use a tempo track for each one of your songs.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
And bring them down a timeline. But you could do all sorts of crossfades and things like that. We have done a bunch of videos on our YouTube channel that go in more in depth into arrangement view and how to add crossfades, how to just really make a set flow in arrangement view. But we're starting to walk into a little bit more advanced territory here. So this is a beginner class. I want to keep it simple. So what I would say is if you're just brand new to doing this, I would use session view and build your set. Don't feel the pressure to use arrangement view. I just showed you that because I knew that some of you might be thinking, well, how could you use arrangement view if I wanted to? I would start with session view first to get your feet wet with that, get comfortable with that. Also, don't feel like you need to implement this on a Sunday morning right away in front of 500 people. Maybe just build a set, try it on your own in practice, maybe bring it to your rehearsal on a Thursday night and get your band used to playing with it. Try it out with your band for a couple weeks. And then once your band feels really comfortable with it, maybe introduce it then on a Sunday morning for 1 or 2 songs and see how it goes. But what I'm saying is don't feel like you have to jump into this 100% right away using it this next Sunday. You probably could, but I would just say it's better to take this one step at a time and start slow until you're really comfortable with it. It's very simple to do. It just can seem intimidating, but I hope that now that you've seen how Ableton Live looks, how it's set up, what the different features are in there, you'll kind of get some ideas of how to build a worship set in it. There's a million things you can do with this software that we did not talk about. You could automate all of your lighting. You could automate your lyrics. You could make it so that whenever the cue voice says verse 2, 3, 4, the lyrics automatically change on the screen behind you, so no more sleepy pro presenter person in the back. Lyrics are in sync all the time. You can do all sorts of things with this software. We can edit tracks, customize them, and we have videos that go through all of those things. So make sure you go to the YouTube channel, go to youtube.com/loopcommunity to find tons of videos about how to do things like that. But I hope that this has given you a good taste of what you can do with Ableton Live. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to announce we chose one person to win Ableton Live intro, and that person is, let me pull it up here, that person is Michael Johnson from Minnesota. Congratulations. Michael Johnson from Minnesota, you are the winner of one copy of Ableton Live 10 intro. We'll be sending that to you. For everyone else, since you came to this class, our good friends at Ableton decided to give us a really great deal. For every person who attends this class, you get Ableton Live 10 intro for $49. And you can get that today for the next 48 hours. You can get that at loop.cm/live9. If you go to the URL right there, loop.cm/live49. You can get live intro for $49, $49.99. That is $50 off. It's usually $99. So this is a great deal. I've actually never seen a deal like that before, so that's awesome. Thank you so much, Ableton, for doing that for us for this class. And I hope that this has really helped you. If you have not already, make sure you create an account at Loop Community and sign up. It's a free to join. If you go to the homepage and scroll down, we are always giving away free tracks. So right now there's 5 different tracks that are live right now that you can download and use in Ableton Live and start playing around with this. So make sure you join Loop Community, get your tracks there, get Ableton Live. If you have any questions at all, we'll be hanging out here on this video chat and talking for a little bit. Join our Facebook group, join our Facebook page. We would love to help you. Thanks so much for joining us today, and thank you for being a part of the community, and thank you for everything you're doing at your church to lead people into worship. See you soon.